Found out, then it appeared that I had failed in intermediate examination. Right,
Okay.
right. I had failed in the interview. That was shocking. I said, what happened? Then I came to IIT, and then in IIT also there was a very tough competition. I mean, as you know that there I got to know very, very bright minds from all over the country. Right, a small mohalla in Patna. First time I had moved out from Patna to Kanpur. And then when I came to appear in the UPSC interview, that was my first visit to Delhi. I had not seen Delhi before, right? So when I came to UPSC, for the interview purpose, so I appeared, and then after about 2 months or so, the result came out. And then the result came out, then we found that, my name is there with such a rank that, I would get the IAS.
Sir, like seeing your journey, like you are from tech background, and then you are facing everything like Naxalism and administration. So ये transition जब हुआ, तो फिर like many people criticize also IITians कि आप लोग civil services में क्यों आते हो, and कि you are from tech background, so do something in tech. So what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, in fact, I mean, this a question was asked to me, in my UPSC interview also.
Okay.
Right. So then, of course, I said that, look, if you have, the society's problem would be solved. If we have to find a solution to, any of your societal problems, no problem, no solution will be efficient unless until you have made use of the right. If you know technology, then, learning other things becomes very easy. But for someone who did not have the background of technology, right, academic background of technology, he will find it much harder to, get into a technology. So a large section of people in the BJP, they were opposing it.
Okay.
Right. And because of that apprehension, many of the BJP's governments, they were not very, they were also in a kind of a dilemma that what is to be done. And the same was true in Gujarat also, that officers were also not very sure that, what will be their political thing. So I still remember that I and Nandan Nilekani went and met Mr. Modi, who was that time the chief minister. And we explained to him that the benefits of Aadhar, I must, we must admire that, the kind of visionary that he was at that time, and today also he is. That in about a 1 hour meeting, we explained to him that this is what Aadhar will do to our country, right? He got fully convinced, and he said that, we will implement Aadhar in Gujarat.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Chill Mizaz, and today we have Ajit Bhushan Pandey ji with us. He is one of the most senior bureaucrat of the country, and he is my senior from IIT Kanpur. Swagat hai sir. And so before coming here, I was reading about you. आपने कभी खुद को Google किया है?
कभी करते हैं.
So you have Wikipedia page, and I was seeing your journey, and वहाँ पे मैंने देखा कि the way you served at many top executive positions of the country, from CEO Aadhar to GSTN के chairperson, and then revenue secretary, then finance secretary. So the question is, while growing up, have you ever thought about this, like you will serve at these positions? And जितना मुझे पता है, you are born and brought up in Bihar, right? तो वहीं से शुरू करते हैं.
So, if you see, I was raised in a very lower middle class family. It's a very small town, Danapur. We were 6 brothers and 1 sister, and then we used to live in a very small house. I did my primary school as well as the high school in a local, the government school that you say now, right? So I was we were in that school. And so when we were, when I was growing up, I always felt, because I used to see a lot of things happening around. And then the question used to be that, can you do something? Why this is not being done? Because child is always very inquisitive, right? And he's perhaps, after a certain age, he's perhaps, the most natural, most logical person, right? If you have to, get a very, very innocent and without any bias, any answer, then you have to ask a child, right? So when I was studying in the school at that time, there were a lot of things, in the society. If you see, there is a lack of, sometimes, the law and order problem. Sometimes, the sheer, lack of cleanliness. Similarly, completely unorganized type of development. And then also you could see, a lot of people without any job and, without doing anything. That, the whole population was growing, but then with no future, right? So you could see, and also the poverty, right? So when you are looking at, and if you are, sorry, so when you are looking at this, so when you are, when you are seeing those things every day, right? Then that time you would feel that why something is not being done, right? And that time, so it was, somehow it was building up in my, in my thoughts and also my entire personality, saying that, something needs to be done. If there is any problem in the society, right? Whether it is a problem of health or education or poverty or law and order or swachhata, these are some of the things. So, so something needed to be done. And I was wondering that, when I grow up, what exactly could be done? So then when I passed my high school, so that time what used to happen is that, you try for, the best performance, right? And so I did reasonably well in my high school exam. And thereafter, on the basis of that performance, I got into Patna Science College.
Okay.
The Patna Science College that time, used to be, and even today, is one of the good colleges in Bihar. So I studied there. And when I went to Patna Science College, and there also my journey used to be that I used to go in a very, very crowded public transport bus, right? And the total distance was about maybe 12, 13 kilometers. But it was also a struggle that how do you go there, right? So where I used to go there, and then, so again the problem of traffic, the crowd and those things. So again some problems you could see. And then, so I got into Patna Science College, and there, I came across very bright students from, all over the state. Because that time, Bihar and Jharkhand were one state. So everybody used to come there. So there also I got to learn many things. Apart from the classroom teaching, what do you learn from your peers, right? And then, so I learned that, the people are trying to go to, preparing for IIT, and they are going for the, this joint entrance examination, JEE. So I thought that I will also give, right? And then, so I gave that exam, and finally I ended up in, the IIT Kanpur. But before that, there was another incident, very, very important incident, that the people, who would like to, because it so happened that, I was doing that time there was no +2, there was intermediate science, intermediate of science. So I also appeared for the intermediate of science. And I was hoping to do very well. But then I was very surprised, and everybody in the family and then friends, everyone was surprised that my name was not there in the pass list. So we thought that, there could be some mistake. But when we found out, then it appeared that, I had failed in intermediate examination. Right? Okay. Right, I had failed in the interview. That was shocking. I said, what happened? Then we found out that I had almost, in the top 10 in physics, chemistry, maths, all those subjects. But there is to be a paper for physics practical and chemistry practical. In the chemistry practical, I was failed by 1 mark. There is a 15 out of 50 was the passing mark. And so I was given 14. And I was amazed that what has happened. Then I recollected. And then I found that, during the lab test, I was asked to do something. And then the results were not coming very as expected. So I raised this point with the examiner saying that, look, the compound that you have, a salt that you have given me, a particular, that doesn't appear to be, because it is not giving me a desired result. So maybe, there is some mistake in giving me the salt because it may have been labeled wrongly, right? And then accordingly, I wrote the right thing, saying that, this doesn't appear to be this. Somehow, this was not taken very, properly. And then the examiner now said, he would go by saying that, you didn't get the desired result. And therefore, I was failed in the chemistry practical. And that time the rule used to be that if you fail in one subject, you fail the entire, this one. It's not that you just take one exam and go. You'll have to repeat it. So that was very shocking, that saying that, why this has happened. I was in top 10 so far as the chemistry theory was concerned, physics, every other subject. But here, because, the compound that they had given me to test, that maybe, now I feel that, there could be some adulteration that time, right? That also was the system there, so I had failed. Then what do we do? Then, so then I just looked around and asked some of the other people. Then we found that there were quite a sizable number of good students from Patna Science College had failed in chemistry practical. So then we had, our doubts and suspicions got confirmed, saying that how come, why this is such an abnormality. So then over the next 2 months, we all about 10-15 students gathered together. We petitioned at that time, I was just about maybe 16 years old. So just imagine that, 10, 12, 16-year students going and we petitioned because the chancellor used to be the governor of the V state. So we went to chancellor, the governor, then we went to the vice chancellor, even the education minister at that time, and we tried to convince our case. Finally, after some struggle for about a few weeks, they found a merit in what we were saying. So when a special examination was held, and then only for the chemistry practical, and then in that examination has passed. So therefore, today I carry 2 mark sheets for my intermediate examination, which one says the pass with distinction, and other of the same year says that fails, right? But then so while this was happening, by the time my JEE result came, and then I found that I have got into IIT Kanpur. So then I got into IIT Kanpur. Right? So that was my beginning. So so at every stage there was some struggle or something like that, right? And it was also getting somehow getting accumulated in my thought process.
And sir, we are talking about Bihar. Actually, about Bihar and Bihar ke Sarkari school. So that is itself a struggle. And while growing up, कि आपने जो चीजें face की, so like while looking back, so how do you feel about this?
No, I'm just saying that it makes you tough, right? This is something which is this, and it makes you tough. It also makes you persist, right? Persistent. And tenacity, all those things are there. I say that, look, if somebody has gone through that stage, right, from his, the primary school to, this level, so, so that is what it is, right, saying that, if this is the case, and then, so then I came to IIT, and then in IIT also there was a very tough competition. As you know that, there I got to know very, very bright minds from all over the country, right? And that time, there used to be no coaching. Very little coaching.
So we are talking about 1978.
78,
Okay.
right, 78. So that time, I mean, the coaching used to be very, very rare. And then all these facilities were available only in some big cities like, Mumbai, Delhi, but not in a place like Patna or somewhere. I mean, these places. So the most of the students used to join IIT at that time. They were completely raw, without any influenced by any coaching or something. They used to be completely raw, right? So we all came there, and then that also was quite I would say that the entire environment there was quite, I would say that overwhelming. Why overwhelming? The reason was that when you just meet somebody, he says that he's Maharashtra board topper.
Okay.
Somebody else is the ICSE board topper. Somebody is UP board topper. I mean, there were at least 5-6 students in my batch who were in the top rankers of Bihar board, or the Bihar Bihar the matriculation board. So you find that all toppers from all over the country had assembled there, right? So that was the challenge, that in that situation, how do you and then we came to know that it is a relative grading there. So the relative grading, we were told at that time that relative grading, that he will be graded, the entire class will be graded on curve. So the average, if your performance is average, then you will get somewhere between C and B grade, right? C grade. And then if you are doing better than average, then you'll get B grade. And for getting A was something like you have to come in 5 to 10% of the class. Now here you have a class full of toppers from all over the world, right? All over India, right? And there so there getting an average itself would be quite a challenge, right? But then how do you get to the level that you will be able to do well? And also because we had come from a background where my education till intermediate was in Hindi medium. So I used to write physics, chemistry, everything in Hindi at that time. So Hindi mediums, and there of course, but then writing, take a science subject or engineering subject, switching to English is not very difficult. So this is what we did, right? And so in the first semester, I was a little worried that what will happen, among all the toppers and other thing. But then every semester is to have 2 mid semester and the final semester. So in the first semester, I also appeared like everyone, and in the first semester, I did exceedingly well.
Okay.
So then I got the confidence that look, I mean, there is something there. And then because of that confidence, then over the next 5 years. And then the 5 year, first my branch was in aeronautical engineering, which in the 3rd year I got changed
into electrical
engineering. And then, so while we were towards the final year, in the final year, there was a lot of debate within the, among all our, among the students, that what is next? What would you like to do next? So primarily there were 3 streams of, the people used to go into one of the 3 streams. One was that, a very large section of students, and very bright ones, they used to write GRE, TOEFL, and then they used to go to, mostly the US universities. And US universities, good universities, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, those are the places they used to go, and they applied. And so they would go there to do PhD or masters. Then again, a small group of people, they will try for management. So they will write the test for the IIMs, and then they will go to one of the IIMs. Then there were a 3rd group of people who said that they would like to do jobs. So mostly the jobs would be in some of the leading private sectors, multinationals, and some of the good public sector ones. So that was the kind of a job. So basically those are three streams, and very few people during our time used to go for the civil service.
Okay.
So that time, so when we were debating that what needs to be done, and then that is where, the entire upbringing, the atmosphere in which I was brought in, saying that, can we do something for the society now that, we have known the technology, we have done this. And also, because, you have grown up, amidst the problems, right? So then, you have a better understanding, in the sense that, what exactly, the people need and people would want, right? So I thought, why not do this? And that is where, I met some of my very good friends, like, the Durga Shankar Misra, who had also come on your channel. So, I and Durga Shankar Misra, and then we started preparing together. We didn't get much time to prepare, only the few months. But then what happened was, and then there were also from our senior batches, the trend in the IIT used to be that those who were trying for the civil services, they will, they will graduate, they will finish their undergrad, and they will stay back in the campus. Maybe they will join some MTech program parallelly and also prepare. So generally they used to take the rooms together in one part of the hostel, and so there also, so we also went there. I and Durga Shankar Misra went there, and then so we had about 14-15 people, the two of us from our batch, and then rest all from the senior batches. And I think one or two also from my batch, like Sanjeev Gupta, these, they were also there. So we prepared, and so I was of the view that perhaps we immediately after finishing your undergrad, there is not much time. So should you take a break for 1 year or so, right? And that is where I must say, the confidence of my friend Durga Shankar Misra. He was saying that is saal hi de dete hain, and let's try. So I also went along, and then I thought that if not anything else, I'll get experience and trial, and maybe next year I will do. I will give that exam. I will take that exam with full preparation. So what happened was that prelims got cleared. Then prelims got cleared. Then so basically it was at least I was taking that exam by trial.
Okay.
Right? This was like this time, you are only trying, but the next time will be more serious. So we got the prelims got cleared. Then I said, all right, then if you have to do mains, then the mains also, we appeared in the mains. But again, very little time, only maybe 2 to 3 months we got to prepare. So the mains was also cleared. Again, the trial. And then I thought that, all right, if these two essays are there, then now, something would, so let's also appear for the interview. So came to Delhi, and then I must tell you that from a small mohalla in Patna, first time I had moved out from Patna to Kanpur. And then when I came to appear in the UPSC interview, that was my first visit to Delhi. I had not seen Delhi before, right? So when I came to UPSC, for the interview purpose, so I appeared, and then after about 2 months or so, the result came out. And then the result came out, then we found that, my name is there with such a rank that, I would get the IAS. So I would say that, look, this, coming into this service, the IAS, actually, when I see a lot of people trying for several years and then getting into this, in my case, perhaps, because I was thinking that, I'm only trying to, it's like a trial, right? But then that trial itself, led to the successful. So somewhere I felt that maybe I am destined to because who knows that supposing the first attempt, if I was not successful, then I may have changed my mind, right? Who knows? Because the people were in the next year also some people were applying abroad and then going to IIM and doing something else. So maybe I don't know who would have changed. So maybe I think the destiny was that I should be coming here, and then that is how. So I joined IAS, right? And then I went to Mussoorie. Then the cadre that I got after a few months, they tell you the cadre. So I got Maharashtra cadre, and Maharashtra cadre. So there again, initial apprehension was that you have to learn a local language, Marathi, and so and so. But that was pretty quick. I mean, you could learn Marathi very quickly. And then getting to know the culture and then the people there, and so I spent my early years in subdivision. Then I was it was a very very communally very sensitive place. My first posting was in Bhiwandi. I was SDM of Bhiwandi, and that my posting was just 1 year after the big the very big riot which had taken place in Bhiwandi in 1990, I think 84, 85, major riot had taken place in Bhiwandi, and that's why the people know Bhiwandi. That is a very communally sensitive place. So I was SDM there, and there the Bhiwandi subdivision has a tribal areas, then communal, and also a lot of urbanization that were happening. Like entire Vasai, Virar, today they have become a big urban center. So all these things used to be part of Bhiwandi subdivision. So I was there at that time. So there the whole problem of urbanization, and then and at the same time the tribal problems, and then the communal. So all those problems you get exposed to, and then you have to. And then my next assignment was, right deep into the heart of tribal belt, that is Gadchiroli, which has had a huge problem of Naxalite. The Gadchiroli is a district, Maharashtra district, just adjacent to Bastar. And the entire belt, now it is in Chhattisgarh, right? That Bastar, another, is part of the Chhattisgarh. So there used to be huge left-wing extremist problem then, and then it was very difficult to reach various places because the road networks were not developed, developments were not there. And there was always a fear that just few years back, a very senior IAS officer and few other officers were kidnapped from Andhra Pradesh. That time Andhra Pradesh. So there's always a fear that you may get kidnapped and so on and so, right? So I was CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Jila Parishad. So I went there, and I lived there for 2 years in the district, and then so I focused on the development work, and then so there again doing something for the tribal, and we also got a special action plan made and there. So that is what and then my next assignment was, I was brought to Mumbai, and there they made me in charge of sales tax enforcement. So Deputy Commissioner Sales Tax Enforcement. So that, and my jurisdiction was entire state. So then, in the taxation, so that was my first exposure to finance and taxation part, so. And there, so I had to learn what is the, how the indirect tax system works. The whole thing was completely manual. People used to file manual return, registers. At that time, in Maharashtra, there were 5 lakh, the dealers we used to call them, who were supposed to pay sales tax. And 5 lakhs, and then they used to file returns, right? Now all the returns used to be manually processed. So that time, I had so what we thought at that time, the first time this computerization was introduced. And those were the days when there was, I think, no personal computer, right? And or even the personal computer was there. I think the Microsoft operating system, MS-DOS, had just come in, and then we used to work on that, and there so we try to computerize the sales tax returns by doing the data entries. The people will file their tax return on paper, and then we had about 40-50 data entry operators who would work in 2 shifts, and then they will fill in the data, and that's how we created the database. And I still remember that we bought a few servers at that time, and then we used those days, the Oracle database, and through this we tried to computerize this. So that was my first exposure, as I said earlier, that was to the finance and use of technology in finance and taxation. Right, that was my first exposure.
Yes, sir. Like seeing your journey, like you are from tech background, and then you are facing everything like Naxalism and administration. So ये transition जब हुआ, तो फिर like many people criticize also IITians कि आप लोग civil services में क्यों आते हो, and कि you are from tech background, so do something in tech. So what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, in fact, I mean, this a question was asked to me, in my UPSC interview also.
Okay.
Right. So then, of course, I said that, look, if you have, the society's problem would be solved. If we have to find a solution to, any of your societal problems, no problem, no solution will be efficient unless until you have made use of the right technology. So technology is not an option, and it was not an option then, and today also. In fact, today I'm there. So the technology. I said that, look, technology is not an option today, and as we progress, as we go ahead in time, the role of technology will become more important, and that is why you need people in civil services from all disciplines, including technology. If the people from technologies are coming, because many times what happens, and that I find even now that there is a problem, right? So, and there is an expert who knows the technology, right? And there is also there are some people who know who will be domain experts, but who would be able to who will find the intersection, right, and combine these two, because when you have to find a solution, then having a person who will know something about the domain and also about the technology, so that he can take a holistic view, right? So this is something which at least I find that in my case it was very helpful, because I said that, look, if you have to, for example, let us say, if sales tax, 5 lakh tax returns are being filed every month, right? Now, how would you find out where are the who has filed, who has not filed, and all kinds of things. And then how do you ensure that who is filing less, paying less tax, who is paying, not paying, the expected amount of tax? How do you find out, right? Which commodity, is there the sales have increased or the tax has increased? You have to make supposing if you have to decide a tax policy, because the people always used to demand that reduce the tax on this. How would you know that if you reduce this tax from, let's say, 10% to 5% for a commodity, right? How will your revenue will get impacted, right? So entire classification and these things, if you try to do manually, you will commit mistakes. Also, it will take time. And then what happens is, because it will take a lot of time to do this, then the people used to earlier decide on the basis of intuitions, and or maybe some sample study or something like that, right? So which may not be accurate or may not be correct many times, and then you will end up in wrong decisions. So what happens in the technology actually, it actually helps you arrive at a very efficient solutions, right? And this was something which I realized at that time. And then if you know technology, then learning other things becomes very easy. But for someone who did not have the background of technology, right, academic background of technology, he will find it much harder to get into a technology. A person from technology can learn maybe some other disciplines, right? So therefore, it is always easier for a technologist to learn many things than the other people learning about the technology. So this is again a very important thing. That is why I always feel, and then that time felt, and even today I feel, the technologist within the service, right? Actually, it makes your entire governance multidisciplinary, right? Your team will be multidisciplinary, right? And then, it helps you arrive at a very, very efficient solutions, right? And very holistic solutions. So I'm in the sales tax. So I worked there for 3 years. And then, of course, the people have to go to districts. So then I went to a district. I was district collector in a district called Jalgaon. And there, so then, so whatever problems happens in the district, the law and order, then again the agriculture, the poverty, all the employment programs, all the urban development, rural development, roads, industrial development. So you get a kind of multi-sector view of everything, and then you will try to see that what worked and what didn't work there, right?
So you were enjoying your life us time pe?
Yeah, like, see, because every day is to be very different. So good thing about this IAS is that every day is very different, right? Every day, all of a sudden you'll find some new problems have come up. Somewhere something has come up, right? Some other disease has come. So that time there was a huge issue of plague, right? The people say, and then it started from Surat, and because we were very close to Surat, Jalgaon. So all those areas were affected. So then people were. So you have to do all these, epidemic control measures, and then at the same time, you have to see that the other developmental activities like school education, primary education, this one. So many of these things. So that time you truly get a complete view at a at a smaller level. At a smaller level. But then again, so this is again was a very useful experience. Then after a few years of after completing my term there, then I moved to Delhi, and then there I, in the central government, I became private secretary to the Minister of Food.
Okay.
The Minister of Food that time was Mr. Ajit Singh, and he himself was, the graduate of IIT Kanpur, and then he also had a tech background before joining politics. He was working in some technology company in US. So in fact, I found a kind of a connection, right? We could talk about many. At that time, the Ministry of Food, again, the problem of procurement, the procurement of wheat, paddy, rice, then the storage, FCI, Food Corporation of India. So all those problems, and also, we used to have a shortage of sugar at that time. So the sugar, shortage of sugar, so then, how do you promote, one is that, the planting of cane crops, and then, the sugar mills, the sugar factories. So how do you do that, and how do you protect the interest of farmers as well as the consumers? So many of these things, and similarly and then the rest of the food procurement and production and transportation. That is a massive exercise. I mean, imagine such a huge population and so much of procurement. So by doing procurement, you are protecting the interests of farmers. By efficiently storing and transporting, and then distributing them through the public distribution system at a very subsidized price, you are protecting the consumer. The market prices the food grains, they are stabilized. And at the same time, the people who cannot afford to buy from open market the food grains, they can get a subsidized food grains through this PDS system. So it was like and in a country such huge as this, if this program is being, so there I got a chance to work at a central government. I also went along with Mr. Ajit Singh, and now he's no more. So went with him in many international delegations, and there I got to learn about the good international practice. So during this time, another thing was cooking up, and which also kind of affected my ability. That when I was in Jalgaon, there was a law and order problem, and in that law and order problem, there was a unfortunate incident where there was some tussle with a local political person.
Okay.
And so he had to be arrested, and and then there was as it happens that when you do something, then there is a that political or their person or his supporters, they try to create some kind of agitation or stir. So all those things happened, but then I think they felt very bad. So they filed a completely false criminal case against the collector, DM, SP, additional SP, saying that okay, we assaulted them and so and so. I mean, this whole thing had happened in broad daylight in front of 10,000 people, but still they filed this complaint, which was completely figment of completely fabricated complaint, I would say. So then that also, so it became a news that the collector, SPs are being tried for some criminal offence and something like that. And so we challenged that in Bombay High Court, Aurangabad bench. So the case went on for 2-3 years. By the time I moved from Jalgaon to Delhi as a private secretary minister of food, then what it happened that I realized at that time that I need to defend this false case, right? And then so I need to figure out that how do we convince the court saying that this is a false case, right? So that aroused my interest in the law.
Okay.
Right. That then I started reading a lot of books and then the various orders of the Supreme Court, High Courts about the Indian Penal Code, CRPC procedures, and then which are the judgments. And once you do that, and then of course along with we had government had given me assistance of some good lawyers. So and then if you know about your case well, and if you know some legal points, then you can give us some very good suggestions to your lawyers, right? Because the lawyers, no matter how good he is, he has to read 100 cases. But you are the most knowledgeable person about your case, and if you also have a background of law, then this actually helps. So then I spent during my the evening or free time, So while I was defending this case and learning about this, I was also developing interest in the legal system and then the law, right? So we won that case in the High Court, and by the time I had already moved to Delhi. But then that person who the other side, meanwhile he became a cabinet minister in Maharashtra.
Okay.
And he filed an SLP in the court, Supreme Court, and Supreme Court stayed that High Court order, right? And meaning thereby that the trial against all of us will continue in the local criminal court in Jalgaon. I mean, that was very damaging in the sense that because the cases will drag on for 10 years. By that time, as it happens that if anyone who is under some trial, then naturally, you are kept aside from, even in the IAS job, you are kept aside saying, let us wait for the outcome of the case. And it takes 10-15 years. By the time your half the career is gone, right? And already the 4 years had already happened. The incident happened in 1994 and we were in 1998. So the case came in the Supreme Court. But in the Supreme Court, we requested Attorney General of India at that time, Ashok Desai. So we sat with him, and then we had several days of discussions. And then again, because I had also studied about the law, and also I was aware of the factuals of the case. So many things I could discuss with him, and then he used to appreciate this. Finally, the case was argued, and then this case was argued for almost 4 continuous days in Supreme Court. Almost about 20 hours. Each day is 4 hours, so 4 to 5 hours. So almost 20 hours the case was argued. And finally we won that case, right, in the Supreme Court. And today that is one of the cited cases in Supreme Court Journal or Criminal Law Journal or SCC. My case is cited cases. So that was the kind of my, getting into this legal work, right? So after this, my stint as a private secretary to Minister of Food, then there was change in the government in Delhi, and so then, as it happens that most of the private secretaries, they are assigned to the various ministries. I was assigned to Labour Ministry. So there I initially worked as a deputy secretary and a director. So I was given the subject of child labor and industrial safety and health, the mine safety, then all the labor laws. So there also, it was a good learning. So I worked there for 2 years. So while I was doing this, I had already graduated from IIT Kanpur in 83, and we were in 98. So that time, again, somewhere my desire is to be that, look, all these things, and now, I was having more the exposure to the various challenges and the problems of the governance, in the governance, right? So every time I used to feel that, because if you do something, it's going to be a patchwork, right? Supposing if there is some leakage or something, right, or there is some there, then, one is that, you call a meeting, tell all your entire organization that, next day you will do this. And after 3 days, the people will forget, right? And then some other challenge will come. So you are going from one crisis to another, right? So it's almost like, you are just applying some, the balm, right? But then you are not treating the disease from the root, right? So that used to be the problem. And that is where I felt that, and by the time, the technology also kept on evolving. Internet was just starting, right? Email was just starting, right? So I thought, why not, take a sabbatical and take a study leave. So usually in the IAS or the civil services, you take a sabbatical, you go and do in economics or public policy and management, right? So I chose a very different path. I thought that, I will do MS in computer science, right? So a lot of people that time also, the people said that, look, is it a right decision? That, why would you like to go into any way, if you have to do anything, you will have all computer engineer, all software companies to assist you. But why would you like to do it yourself? But my point was again that, anyone, having knowledge of both is better suited. And he can discuss the problems or the solutions with the technical experts, right? And at the same time, so he can act like a bridge between the domain and then the technology, right? Yes. Experts. So he can act like a bridge. So I said that this is how. And then my another, that time I had envisioned that, the India, because our population was growing. And so one day, and then the role of technology in governance, in development, or everything that you do in your daily life is going to increase.
It's rising exponentially.
Right. But imagine that time internet had not, the completely exploded, right? I mean, it was just beginning. But I felt that, look, if these things have happened, then, it wouldn't take much time to do this. So this is the right time, then you go and do this. So then, I applied, I took the usual route, GRE, TOEFL, getting recommendations from IIT Kanpur professors, and also some of my senior officers in IAS. And then I applied, so luckily I got admission in computer science masters, and also they gave me teaching assistantship, right, just to support myself financially. So I and my wife and also the two small children, they were 3 or 4 years old. So all 4 of us went to Minnesota, Minneapolis, which is one of the coldest place in US. Almost 5 to 6 months it is full of snow.
Okay.
Right, it's very, very cold. The temperature, December, January, the temperatures goes as low as -30, -40 degrees Celsius. Most of the time it is around -5 degrees Celsius, during this cold peak period. So so initially my plan was to go for the doing masters. So I completed my masters in 2 years, and then.
So how was the feeling like going back to college again?
College again, I mean, initially for maybe few weeks it did
feels weird.
Right, felt a little different. But but once, let us say that started getting assignments and exam and so, right? Then again it is a problem solving, right? Because there is something which you have to learn, right? Learn, apply, then you have to do some projects, those things, right? So basically, I always felt that, this is one job that has been given to me, right? And then this is what I have to do, right? And then while you are doing the job, you are also learning, right? And then, you are also learning. So this way, in 2 years, I finished my master's. And then, I wrote a paper, the paper got published. So my advisors and some other professors, they suggested that, why don't you stay here for maybe a couple of more years and complete the PhD?
Okay.
So then I extended my program to the PhD, and then so I stayed there for full 5 years, and then I finished my PhD in computer science.
So does it affect your seniority? Like
in IAS, good thing is that up to 5 years you can take leave, be on extended leave. A study leave can be extended up to 5 years. I mean, they don't pay you salary, right? Salary they will pay you only for 2 years, but then 3 years leave without pay maximum you can get. The total absence cannot be more than 5 years.
Okay.
During the 5 years, supposing if you have acquired some higher qualification, which would be relevant to the the governance, then your seniority and other things wouldn't get affected. So that's a very good thing. And that is what I always tell my younger colleagues in the civil service, that they should use this, and they should find appropriate slot in their career, right, where they should take sabbatical or leave like this and acquire higher qualification in any field that they want. Right? So I did that. So I came back from. So after 5 years, I came back. I went to Maharashtra. So Maharashtra at that time. Mr. Sushil Kumar Shinde was the chief minister.
Chief minister, okay.
And then, he took me into his own office and made me secretary to the chief minister. So I worked with him and there again, I got exposed to the whole problems and then the governance, the pulls and pressures, tensions.
You're looking after whole state, like
whole estate, right? Because I was assisting him. So attending the cabinet meeting, briefing him, advising him. This is what. These are the options. So at that level,
the scale kept on increasing.
Right, yeah. And then, so after after the election, then he didn't come back, and so then I got moved to IT department, Information Technology Department of Maharashtra. So I became Secretary IT. So again, all these IT initiatives. So that is where I felt that my knowledge of technology and this IT is being put to use. Even otherwise also, as a Secretary to CM, once you have learned the technology, you can always think logically. You can say that, why you can't do this. But here it was a direct application, that building a data center, building the statewide area network, and those things also happen. So I worked as an IT secretary, and there, as an IT secretary, you get to interact with the IT developments in the other states, right? Other IT secretaries at a national level, what is happening at the international level. So some amount of how IT is being used as a tool in the governance, direct tool in the governance. So that is where I got exposed to. Then after that, there was an occasion where I was appointed as a managing director of Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company.
Okay.
So Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company is the largest distribution company in India. It handles India's 10% of electricity.
Okay.
That time it used to have more than 1.5 crore consumers. Right, consumers. So we had to be one of the largest, the power sector company. And then because it was earlier in the public sector, it was the public sector. So, the staffing and then the huge losses, inefficiency and various other things. So again, there, my knowledge, because my degree was also in electrical engineering. And where I did some courses on power sector. So the basic knowledge, then IT, and then the overall governance. So that was very useful, right? So so in 1 year time, I turned this company, which was a loss making, into profit.
Okay.
Right. And then, even the transmission and distribution losses were reduced. So I worked there for 3 years. And then after that, again, I moved back to IT ministry in the state government. I was IT secretary. So there I worked for about, again, 1.5 years or so. And then this, at that time, this UIDAI project was getting launched. So Nandan Nilekani had come to Maharashtra, and so he was trying to advocate. And this is way back in 2009.
Okay.
So he was trying to go from state to state and trying to explain people that this is how the Aadhaar is being planned, and this is what Aadhaar will do. And because I was IT secretary, so I used to attend his meeting. And then I felt that yes, this is something which will actually change the face of the country, right? It so happened that in 2010, I gave my option to go for the central deputation. And then central deputation, and it so happened that I didn't specifically ask for, let's say, the UIDAI or any other one. So I said that, here is my background, and I want to come for central deputation. And I must credit the DOPT that they found a match, and then they sent my the name to the UIDAI as a deputy director general for the post of deputy director.
First time DG was, I guess, R.S. Sharma.
R.S. Sharma was the DG at that time, and so that's how I got into the.
We also showed one episode together.
That's
so
right,
I know him. So you were deputy director general this time.
Yeah, and he was director general. So I was based in Mumbai, so I was looking after the enrollment work, these things. So there, my area was Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, and Daman Diu, right? So there, I was trying to work with the state government, and that time, initially, because Aadhaar was launched in 2010, September 28, 29, 2010, and I had joined. UIDAI, I think a month before that, right? So we were trying to go to the respective states and meet their officers, meet their political chief ministers, and trying to convince them, saying that you must, help us enroll as many people as possible, and we should start using Aadhaar, right? So both the things. So in that connection, we used to go and meet there. And that was the time when Mr. Modi, our current Prime Minister, was the Chief Minister of Gujarat.
Okay.
And then my area also came, Gujarat was one of there. So there, I also worked under, worked with the officers of the Gujarat government, right? And initially we were being told that, because that time, unfortunately, Aadhaar, and it happens to any good program, that there are always, the two viewpoints, right? And the two viewpoints are okay in the sense that, democracy. But many times it so happens that there are two viewpoints and they get divided on the political lines, right? So naturally, because that whole program was being driven by UPA, the Congress government under Manmohan Singh, so a large section of people in the BJP, they were opposing it.
Okay.
Right. And because of that apprehension, many of the BJP's governments, they were not very, they were also in a kind of a dilemma that what is to be done. And the same was true in Gujarat also, that officers were also not very sure that, what will be their political thing. So I still remember that I and Nandan Nilekani went and met Mr. Modi, who was that time the chief minister, and we explained to him that the benefits of Aadhaar, I must, we must admire that, the kind of visionary that he was at that time, and today also he is. That in about a 1 hour meeting, we explained to him that this is what Aadhaar will do to our country, right? He got fully convinced, and he said that, we will implement Aadhaar in Gujarat. So much so, and whereas a large section of people within the BJP were not very enthusiastic about Aadhaar, right? And which is natural, because if there is some program and we see in many programs, right? So, but then when a large section of people, the same party was having apprehensions and reservation, and here is one chief minister who said that we will do it in Gujarat, and not so much only the Gujarat. He said that when can we start this? We said that, sir, we can start this maybe within a month. He said, all right. 1st of May 2012, the Gujarat state and Maharashtra states were formed. So that day, a big function just like Republic Day are held in Maharashtra and Gujarat both. So on 1st of May 2012, Mr. Modi actually launched this program publicly, and also enrolled himself in the full public view in that public gathering. Right. So not only launched and did this, he also enrolled for Aadhaar. So he became practically one of the first persons who enrolled for Aadhaar in Gujarat, right? And by doing himself. And then thereafter it picked up. In Gujarat we did a lot of work. And then, so finally in 2014 when he came to Delhi, and then of course, he, while he was encouraging Aadhaar, but at the same time he had also a lot of good suggestions that how do you further improve Aadhaar, and how do you address the various concerns which the other people, including the people from the other political parties, and then also a lot of people, this civil rights activists, social activists, they were having. So so what are the changes that are required? So in 2014, when he became the Prime Minister, he started that exercise. He said that, all right, so far the basic Aadhaar is concerned, we have no problem, but then can we address some of the problems and potential problems which may arise? Can we address that? If we do that, then Aadhaar will be further strengthened. So he completely, I would say that, he encouraged and brought in, suggested, several path-breaking changes within the Aadhaar itself. And while this was happening, we were trying to do that. In 2015, I was moved from Maharashtra. I was Deputy Director General. Then I became a DG here. So I was made in charge of entire Aadhaar program in the country, 2015. That time also another very important thing happened.
Okay.
The other important thing happened was that around the same time, I think 2 or 3 weeks before I joined here in Delhi as a Director General, that time used to be called Director General of UIDAI. The Supreme Court 3-judge bench had stayed Aadhaar, practically stayed Aadhaar, saying that, look, you are collecting the biometrics of crores of people, and you don't have any legislation. Because the Aadhaar bill was pending in the Rajya Sabha, right? And it was not getting passed. And so they're saying don't have a law. So without a law, how can you carry out such massive exercise? So the Supreme Court says that, all right, if you want to carry on enrolling Aadhaar, you can do that, but there will be a severe restrictions on use of Aadhaar. And if you're not going to use Aadhaar, then why will people enroll? So that was an existentialist, crisis for Aadhaar. Because, if that stay order, because many times it happens is that something gets stayed in the court. And then if the stay continues for several years, then the whole program itself gets abandoned or is just withers away, right? So I thought that, maybe we are going to meet the same fate. So I started actively working, and that is where, again, I would say that my legal knowledge and that background, I said that, can we do something? So I started discussing with Attorney General. Attorney General was Mukul Rohtaki, and then Arvind Panagadia was the vice chairman of Niti Aayog. So I had started discussing with him, saying that, look, such a good program, we must do something. Then we said that, look, we were, so we had already a bill, Aadhaar law bill, pending in the parliament. So when I looked at the Aadhaar bill, it said that, look, every resident of India will be given an Aadhaar and so and so. But it was completely silent on what exactly Aadhaar will do. And so then I said that, can we make some change? And if we say that, and that was one of the reasons that, you are giving Aadhaar, you are not sure that what we will do, whether you will do for forensic purpose or some crime or privacy or surveillance, we don't know, right? Or even though government was saying and we were saying that we will use for the direct, for the benefits, but it was not written anywhere in the law. So we thought that, why not draft a new law? And in that new law, we will try to say that, basically it is a direct benefit transfer scheme.
Okay.
A law for a direct benefit transfer. And in order, because direct benefit transfer is direct, it goes direct to the beneficiary. How do you identify a beneficiary? The identification can be, securely done, through Aadhaar only, right? Because otherwise, we had a problem of fake, duplicates, ghosts. So how do you ensure that your benefits are not taken away by the middlemen or by the ghosts and duplicates, right? The benefits should reach you, and then there is no other foolproof method than Aadhaar to identify you. So we said that, let us, instead of, calling it an Aadhaar, National Unique Identity Bill, we said that, why should we call it an Aadhaar Targeted Delivery of Services Bill, right?
Okay.
So then, so we had this idea, then we had a discussion, and that time, in fact, I got a full, lot of, the legal as well as the intellectual support from Vidhi, Dr. Arghya Gupta, and so he was helping us. So we used to debate, both of us, and then finally, when we discussed this, casually discussed with lawyers, and then Mukul Rohtaki was the Attorney General, and so we were discussing, can we have something like, a new Aadhaar bill, which will, instead of focusing on the identity part or unique ID part, it will focus on the direct benefit part, right? And if we make, and because, so this idea was found, acceptable by the Attorney General, and because if it is a direct benefit transfer, and direct benefit transfer basically means that money will go out from the Consolidated Fund of India, then it could become a money bill. So that was the idea. So that is why in the money bill, but money bill, the advantage also is, apart from that it is technically a money bill, that it requires only the approval of the Lok Sabha, right? And even if the Rajya Sabha has a reservation, as per the process, the Lok Sabha will prevail, right? So that was the also the advantage. So the whole character of the Aadhaar was changed, and in fact, this is what our the Prime Minister was mentioning that, it was his reservation when he was Gujarat Chief Minister, saying that Aadhaar only for the purpose of identity and then leaving people to use it in whatever manner, right? Actually, it causes a lot of confusion as well as the security risk. Tomorrow, they may start using it for, maybe some other purpose, right? And then the people were already trying to use it. Some people were trying to strengthen and trying to use it to prove their citizenship, and also the illegal migrant. So many of those things they were trying to do. So therefore, it was always it is always good that whenever you have a new system, you also have to identify the target beneficiaries. So similarly, in Aadhaar program, who were the target beneficiaries, right? How will they get benefited? And that should, if that is provided in the law, then many of these confusion and apprehensions and the fears, they will get removed, right? And then the people also will know that, if I have an Aadhaar, then, I'll be able to open bank account, I will be able to get, apply, get my ration, and my ration or my benefits will not be taken away by the middleman and ghosts and fakes, right? So those things will not happen. So that is why, then accordingly we drafted a new law, right? And then in this new law, and that is where, because it is a very, very substantial change, and therefore, we presented it to Mr. Jaitley. Jaitley was at that time finance minister, and he fully supported. He said, this is how we should do this. The Prime Minister's office also, because the Prime Minister was saying it from much earlier, even before he became Prime Minister. So when we drafted this new law, it actually made a substantial change in the entire Aadhaar structure, right? And gave it the color of a mere identity to actually the direct benefit transfer enabler, a means to do a direct benefit transfer. So accordingly we drafted the bill, and then the bill was produced before the Parliament, right? Along with the budget in 2016. On the same day we presented it, and then finally this bill was passed, and then Aadhaar became a law. Once it became a law, then our case further strengthened. We also brought in a lot of other features to address the privacy concerns, because people thought that privacy or the security concern, security of Aadhaar, that if my Aadhaar number gets known to somebody, then he may take money from my bank account, right? Yes. And all these kinds of things will happen. A lot of jokes also started circulating.
So it's a database of crores of people.
Right? Yeah. So then we brought in and many the security features and also privacy protection features, right? Without compromising the utility, because many times what happens is that the best way to protect privacy is that you don't move out of your home. But then that doesn't solve the problem, right? So the whole idea is that how do you make most use of Aadhaar, and at the same time you also make Aadhaar secure, and also effectively prevent the abuse of Aadhaar, right? Or somebody misusing your Aadhaar, something of many of these things. That is where again my knowledge of technology, because when I was to discuss with the technical experts, I should tell them that this is how it should be done. So a lot of the ideas and used to come from such the technical meetings. So it was like a technology, legal, and also the governance. So this was like a kind of a triveni of these three, and that is where I felt that my knowledge of law, which I acquired throughout this process, and also this, so that was there.
I read also you are the only non-lawyer person to give presentation in Supreme Court.
Yes, because in the court what happens many times that when you discuss many complicated technical concepts, usually the cases are argued by the lawyers. So we used to go so you try to brief your own lawyer. So we also used to go initially to brief our Attorney General, and by that time Mukul Rohtgi had resigned. Mukul Rohtgi's term was over, and Mr. K.K. Venugopal, very senior and very capable, the lawyer, and commands a lot of respect. So he had become Attorney General of India. So when I was trying to explain to him various concepts of Aadhaar, he was also finding it difficult because it was a technology. And as I said, that the people may be domain expert, but then if you ask him to understand technology, he may not be able to fully appreciate this. So I was having a lot of difficulty. So then I realized that if I am not able to convince the Attorney General of India, how will he convince the Supreme Court bench? Because Supreme Court had already stayed Aadhaar, right? So now we needed to, our final hearing was expected to take place over the next few months. So then I requested Attorney General saying that, look, why don't you give me a chance to actually make a presentation? He said, all right. So he, at his official residence, we arranged a big presentation where he also called many other senior lawyers like Solicitor General of India, Additional Solicitor General, Tushar Mehta, many other lawyers who were in our team, all senior lawyers, Rakesh Dwivedi. So they all came, and then I made a presentation, and then the presentation went on for full 1 day, right? So at the end of the presentation, I was thinking that I don't know how much I have been able to convince them or convey to them. So at the end of the presentation, Attorney General K.K. Venugopal, he said that I really wish that if you could make this presentation before the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So the whole idea of making a presentation before the Supreme Court was shown on that date. So I said that, sir, how is it possible in the Supreme Court only the lawyers go and argue, right? He said, no, we'll try to convince, because this is a very, first of all, this is very critical for our country. And we want that, the Supreme Court must understand. Supreme Court may decide, whichever manner, but then Supreme Court may decide. But then this is how it should be. Finally, we... So when this time for hearing came up, so our other side were also being argued by many eminent lawyers. So they took about 15-16 days. So when our turn came, then Attorney General suggested that, in the beginning, our CEO UIDAI, who has a PhD degree in computer science and also the vast experience in the governance, he would like to make a presentation and explain to you, right? So after some initial hesitation, when he persisted and requested Attorney General, the bench agreed. The 5-judge constitutional bench agreed. And then, so the next day I started making a presentation. And then what I had made, the way I had done this, if I am going to make a presentation and I use technical jargons, and make it the technology presentation, then the purpose would be lost.
Yes.
So because I knew both sides, rather all three sides, legal, little bit, and also the governance, and then, so if I have to explain many complex technical concepts of Aadhaar in a layman terms, how do you explain, right? So, and because, I know the other side also, so therefore, I was in a position to do that, right? So so my presentation was on that basis. So when I started making presentations, so naturally the judges became more interested and inquisitive. So they asked a lot of questions. And because, there were questions, I was, answering them in the open court. So this entire presentation continued for full 2 days. Full 2 days.
Okay, 2 days.
2 days it continued. And finally, towards the end, the judges were happy, but then, then our lawyers took over, and for the next 10-15 days, those arguments took place. And finally, after some time, we got a judgment, historic judgment, almost 1,200 pages judgment came, and where in the 5-judge bench, 4 judges fully supported ours, and 4:1, the judgment was passed saying the Aadhaar is a constitutional. Aadhaar is very good for the governance. Aadhaar will, help the poor, right? and also Aadhaar does not breach privacy, and Aadhaar, is also, at this point of time it is secure. But they also made few suggestions to further enhance the security and privacy features of Aadhaar, and which we agreed. Right. So this is how the Aadhaar case was won, and then thereafter you can see how Aadhaar has happened.
So that was the base of digital transformation that we have seen last decade.
Yeah, that's correct. And then parallelly, while this was going on, parallelly, the GST was launched in 2017, 1st July. And then, in the first month itself, everybody was supposed to migrate to the online portal. And entire, I think the 1 crore 10 lakh people were supposed to file returns and make payments online and at one portal. And then the payment GST will be apportioned among the states and center. But then the whole, because, it is such a huge platform, right? And therefore, because of some technical problems, some confusions, the people couldn't file the returns. And then at that time, the government, made me, give me an additional assignment of GSTN chairman.
Okay.
In 2017.
So you're managing both the positions.
Right, yes, that's
parallelly.
Correct. Right, parallelly. GSTN chairman. So that, because, maybe, thought was that I was handling one of the large systems, Aadhaar, right? The GSTN is also one of the largest, big systems of the country, platform. So maybe I could do something about it. So with that purpose in mind, perhaps the government thought it fit to give me the additional charge of that post. So I worked on this, and so on both the roles. And over the next few months, the problem got sorted out. Then the GST has a new law, new system. So then a lot of things had to be fine-tuned. Altered. A lot of teething problems we had to sort out, right? So this is what we did. And then we started getting, money every month. And then finally in 2018, when I was holding both the assignments, I was appointed Revenue Secretary of India.
Right? Sir, scaling up Aadhaar to all the billion users, and it has become a part of our day-to-day lives. So here I want to, a few days back, I was watching some episode. So there is a Sabeer Bhatia, he is a founder of Hotmail. So he was saying that Aadhaar is So he said that Aadhaar is a very ill project and they spend ill money on that. It is not more than a Venmo, to be exactly. He said it is just a database of fingerprints and all. It should be done through voice and just recognize, just face. In just 20 million bucks. So, any opinions on that?
See, I have not, I just read about it, but then, it is not fair for me to make a comment on, what he had said, because it is not something which I would like to do. But then I will give you the general perspective. Okay. Many people, see, after all, what is Aadhaar system? If you look, technically, it is you have some biometric features, the fingerprints, the iris, face, right? And so you take that feature, right? And then, you do an entire deduplication exercise. And then at the time of authentication, you present one of your fingerprint and then accordingly do the authentication. So if you look at this is not a rocket science, right? I mean, somebody can claim that, one can prepare a prototype, maybe few lakhs rupees, right? Because after all, the biometrics, you have some data, right? And then, you have to match some data, right? This is something which to be done. What is more important is that creating of this scale, number one, and that was, let's say in 2009-10, right? At that particular time, where at that time the face authentication was not, it was not there, right? Face authentication was, maybe it may be there in the lab, right? But this particular thing was still, people were trying to say that, which is the most convenient, right? And also, so I would say, for example, if supposing somebody says that, when we were in the IIT, right, IIT Kanpur, that time we heard that, we got a very powerful computer, the DEX System 10.
Okay.
Right. And we imported from abroad, and then this was supposed to be very powerful. But today, whatever power that it does, DEX System 10, right, can be done by maybe, one NVIDIA chip, right?
Yes, exactly.
That can actually, so the Moore law applies. So therefore, you cannot go back in the time and saying that, today you are able to do this at this cost. And therefore, the project has been done, has not been done efficiently. I don't think that is a correct view to take. What one has to see that, let's say in 2010 or 9, what are the technology and other things were available at that time, right? And how much money people were spending on a similar project. If you went anywhere, let's say abroad, right? And if you wanted to apply for a driver license, right? Or, anything, just see that how much, the usage fee the people had to pay. I still remember that when I was in US, and way back in 99, and that time we used to go to the US, they used to take our photograph and other thing. And there, it's a government department, Department of Motor Vehicle. They would charge, maybe $20, $30. But currently, they charge even much more, right? So therefore, and here, what did we charge people? We didn't charge people anything. And for per identity card, we spent, because it's not only the hardware and software, the entire printing, then the postage, right? And then also taking the enrollment machine to every village, his manpower cost. And then, he actually enrolls, right? Imagine, 1.2 billion people enrolled by the lakhs of people. Where is that cost, right? And where is so therefore, so the people generally try to mistake and say that, look, this is only some software matching, the cost of software matching. The cost of software matching, why a couple of millions? It could be done, even much lesser amount, right?
Yes, sir.
But the moment you try to scale, and then, if you are going to reach to 1.2 billion people, right? At what cost? And if you say that, in 2010 to 15, if you had to go there, that time, what was the competing cost? What is the person of one person's, would have done? So I think, maybe, so I don't know that, so therefore, if anyone is making a comparison, he has to make a comparison with the entire system, right? Here, for the entire job of enrollment, taking the enrollment machine to the village, enrolling persons, photograph all fingerprints, and then, sending this data to our data center, and then the printing, the printing of Aadhar card and sending it to India by India Post. The total cost, it used to cost us 50 rupees. Out of that, maybe, and initially used to send by speed post. So maybe 20 rupees was the speed post cost, the manpower cost. So so in any such comparison, you have to, one is that the hardware and software cost, which existed at that time. And plus, the other manpower cost. So how do you do that, right?
So for me, Aadhaar is a revolution because I have seen people getting direct benefit, like in village areas.
For example, let's say the startup, for example, right? So let's say, there are many startups are there, right? So supposing somebody says that, look, I am, like for example, Flipkart, for example, right? I mean, the Flipkart, and then, this entire software can be made maybe in few millions. Somebody can say, can create a prototype, right? That, having a cart and other things, maybe, much smaller amount. But then, how do you reach people? How do you have a delivery boy and then all these the call centers, the quality control, all these things cost money, right? And that is why the company like Walmart, when they value this one is of course on the basis of your expected earning, right? So if it was possible for, let us say, Walmart to build something for maybe much smaller amount, then why would it pay? I recall that maybe Walmart got a majority stake in Flipkart for, I think, maybe about 15-16 billion US dollars, right?
Sir, and he must also not be aware of ground reality. Like, in villages in India, they don't have internet access, they don't have access to these technologies.
So the entire manpower cost of, the taking the machine to the village, and also and also the printing, and then also delivering at home, within that 50 rupees. I mean, just imagine. This is something which is. So I remember that I was in the one of the meetings in the World Bank in 2017, and there was a panel discussion, and Paul Romer, who was the chief economist at that time, and Paul Romer was the chief economist, and later on he got Nobel Prize. So he was actually the moderator, and along with me, the other panelist was a lady who was finance minister of Indonesia. So the Paul Romer asked me, that my interview is still on their website, the World Bank. So the Paul Romer asked me that how much did it cost you? I said that look, till today, the program started in 2010. So all costs put together, including the cost of maintenance, enrollment, printing, all these things together, still we have not exceeded $1 per enrollment, per Aadhaar. $1. So he was very surprised. $1 per Aadhaar, right? Because our population was 1.2 billion, and we had spent only about maybe 6,000-7,000 crore at that time. So it's still not exceeded $1 billion, right? So we have said this not more than $1 per Aadhaar. So Paul Romer was very surprised. Then the Indonesian finance minister, she was also very surprised. He said that, how is it possible that, you are able to, go to the village, take biometrics, do all matching, right? And then print and then, deliver it at home for 50 rupees, right? How is it possible, right? So then, I had to explain many of these concepts. So about the costing, one has to look at this point, yes.
No, sir, the reason why I asked this question is because he said ki Aadhaar is not an innovation, and those people who worked on it must not be technologists.
See, we are living in a free country. People have the voice, and then I have not heard him. So I generally don't make a comment.
Yeah, sure.
But then when I mention this, that there are a lot of people who may think that this is not an innovation, this can be done at a very low cost, costly and so and so. They need to be made aware that the scale at which this operation has taken place, and a scale at which many of other innovative exercises around the world has cost how much. It could be in the government, it could be elsewhere, right? Say any e-commerce platform, for example, Amazon people can say that I can build this. Right, but then one has to consider first the software and hardware cost which existed then, not today, right? And then plus the entire system, the manpower, the people, and then the quality control, the call centers, who will bear those costs, right? Yeah.
But so I totally appreciate it. It created the transparency. Directly you can benefit to the poor people of the
total
country.
Benefit. The World Bank had said that total benefit. There was a World Bank report which said that each year India will benefit by $10 to $12 billion. Right. Now take example of I was watching Elon Musk speak in the White House, right, in the Oval Office of Donald Trump. And there I heard that, he's saying that, the social security payment, the people are getting pension who are 150 years old and all kinds of things they're saying. I said that, look, this is exactly the problem which Aadhar tackled about 10 years back. All the ghost pensioners and, the bogus, and then, the beneficiaries, the girl who is not born got all the maternity benefits, and then also got Vidhwa pension, widow pension.
Unit fingerprint.
So many of these things, we sorted out. I said that, look, this is something, many of these fraudulent things which are coming to notice in one of the advanced countries of the world. This, we actually did it, 10 years back.
Yes. And so continuing to digital transformation, then after 2018,
so I became revenue secretary, and then so that time I was having all the 3 assignments.
Okay.
CO, UIDAI, because that time, UIDAI needed some transition. So I continued while I was revenue secretary and GSTN chairman. I continued to be CEO of UIDAI for 1 more year.
Okay.
So I had 3 assignments at that particular time. So we did this, and then So the whole idea was that, stabilize GST, the GST platform, make it robust. Aadhar had already, we had won that case in the Supreme Court. Aadhar was, beginning was getting to be stabilized. Same thing about the GST. Now in the income tax, we brought in a lot of innovations in the income tax as well. The income tax, first of all, we said that, how do we, one was, of course, this corporate tax, because the whole income tax system was such that
before it was 30%, I guess.
Right, and then we brought down to 22%, and for the new manufacturing 15%. So it was a very drastic reduction in corporate tax, and we withdrew all exemptions. People used to have a backward area exemption or some other, all kinds of exemptions. Each exemption meant a certain discretion by the assessing officer. And then the allegation of corruption, harassment, and the overreach, all those things used to come. So we thought that why don't we do this? So then of course the government we brought in, and so that was one of the major thing that was done during that time. That was the slashing of the corporate tax. And then we became competitive with the whole world. Because 22%. If you see again, if you see some of the statements of the U.S. president, he also says that we are going to bring down the tax rate to 12%, not 12% for the new manufacturing in America, 15% tax rate. And this was done in 2019 in India, right? So this is something which we try to do that. So we became very competitive. Also in the personal income tax, we again, in the next year, 2020, we introduced this new system, of income tax, where, you will not get an exemption, but then, the slabs were such that, it will be beneficial to you. So we brought in this, and that led to, increase in filing of returns and the people coming to the tax rate. We also brought in a faceless assessment. So here, the earlier, if I used to live in Mumbai, I will have to go to one particular tax officer year after year, right? And therefore, either the bias, prejudice, or collusion, this thing will happen. Here, what happens is that, that you file your income tax on the cloud, and then the cloud will assign, one officer from anywhere in the country. He will assess your case and then pass orders. So assessment, same thing will be in the appeal. So it's a completely randomized, and therefore, eliminating any scope of bias or prejudice or favoritism or collusion, right? And making the system more transparent. So this was also one of the major things in the income tax department. Also, we brought in many measures like, the tax deduction at source, so that we can track all, the major transactions. Because what was noticed earlier, that there were many cases where people were spending huge amount of money, buying expensive car, not filing return, saying that my income is less than 5 lakhs, but buying BMW, right?
Right.
Or traveling abroad multiple times and not filing income tax returns, saying that my income is below the taxation. So what happened that, on many areas we brought in this element of either the TDS or tax collection at source, so that those transactions can be, tracked. Similarly, people used to get huge amount of dividend or the capital gain in the stock market, but if they don't show, then then the after our income tax department will go after how many people. So we had developed a system where we get the information about the dividend paid by each company or capital gain in the mutual fund or in the stock transactions. All those transactions will get reported to the income tax department, and income tax department will show your transactions on your page, the taxpayer's page, so that the taxpayer is made aware that income tax is aware of how much capital gain I have made, how much dividend I have got, how many times I have gone abroad, and so and so. So all those transactions will be known to me. Then when I file my income tax return, more likely I will disclose those transactions, because I know that income tax department knows about it. The earlier system used to operate saying that look, how will income tax department know? So let me try and not declare this. And if 1 year nothing happens, then the next year you get emboldened. Then you tell it to other people, they also get emboldened. So now what has happened is, because of this, so we introduced this system called annual information statement. Annual information statement gives you more information, all major transactions undertaken by you, and also the income earned out of it on your portal, just to convey to you that income tax knows about it. And also it actually helps you prepare some kind of a pre-filled return, which either you can accept or you can make appropriate changes and file. So if all these measures, if you look at this, for the last 4 or 5 years, our tax growth, direct tax growth, is around 15-16% every year, which is much more than the normal GDP growth, because usually the tax collection grows by the the GDP growth level, right? Nominal GDP growth level, but in this case it has exceeded. And for the 4 or 5 years, something which we used to collect in around 2018-19, about 10 lakh crore, our total income tax collection used to be. Now, currently it is more than 20 lakh crores. So in 5 to 6 years, you are collecting more than double, and our GDP hasn't grown. Nominal GDP hasn't grown that level. So all these things are, all the tax reforms. We also connected GST with the income tax, because we felt that, people are claiming high turnover in GST, but not showing the appropriately in the income tax, or vice versa. So all these systems were. We also connected the imports with the income tax and the GST. So, this is how the connections there. So that was my role as a finance secretary. So in fact, I presented 4 annual budgets. 4 budgets during this time, and then again infrastructure. So the green infrastructure, the national infrastructure pipeline, many of these things, initiatives were done. The UPI is another story that when we were in Aadhar, that time we said that this demonetization was introduced, and then the need for digital payment felt, and then not many people had a debit card, credit card, that kind of a thing. But then each of that, involves some cost. When you pay by debit card or credit card, the merchant, if you are not paying, then the merchant has to pay to the credit card companies or the banks which has issued the card, right? The maintenance. India, this UPI, the platform has been built, the NPCI and then the RBI, where it is completely free. So we made provision in the law in 2019 that UPI will be free, it will not charge any commission, right? And also we made another law change in the income tax rules, where we said that anyone having a turnover more than 50 crores will have to offer to his customer the choice of payment by UPI.
Okay.
So that did the marketing, and at the same time, no fees. So that's why today you will see that after that, the change in the law, the UPI growth trajectory has been completely, has taken off, right?
Even I use 10 times a day.
Right. So imagine, so that is the reason, because, supposing if we had put some charges there, the people wouldn't have done this. If the merchants were not forced to, offer you the UPI, you wouldn't have paid this. Now, because the bigger merchants are being forced by income tax rules to pay, and you will prefer to pay, and then the merchants also will offer to pay, right, a smaller one, because they don't have to pay any commission to commission to the banks or the credit card companies. And then the result is that when the entire 1.4 billion people, if they are have the UPI on their mobile phone, right, then all these small street vegetable vendors, they have started using the UPI because, for them, the money is safe, secure, right? No threat of, somebody stealing the money or going to the bank and then they're losing the wage hours. So those things. So many of those things we could do. So in fact, if you see, there are 3-4 major platforms which, have been built where, I was, I was privileged that I was associated with this. Of course, one is the Aadhar, then the GST, then the entire income tax faceless system, the AIS, right, and then the UPI. So these are all like, India, the part of this digital public infrastructure that you call. And they are unique in the world, right? Because in the many developed parts of the world, people have many such, the identity infrastructure, like, many of these things are there. The social media accounts, they are also kind of your identity, social media, but they are owned by the private corporations, right? But here they all are owned by
Government of India.
By people of India, right? People of India. Same as who owns UPI? Not any company X, Y, Z. But, unlike the card companies, but it is by people of India, right? Similarly, and most of these are technologically, because they are mostly based on the open source or open platforms. So therefore, we are not having any vendor tie-in or those kinds of things, and also it leaves a lot of scope for innovation. So these are some of the things that have been done.
So when you joined as a finance secretary, I think that was one of the most hardest periods.
Then of course, we had a COVID time, and then that time COVID. So the COVID thing arose that how do we assist people, right? And there, because we had already a DBT platform available, another digital public infrastructure, DBT platform, Aadhar enabled.
Okay.
So the money could be pushed into the bank accounts. So one day the government decided that, we need to assist women, 22 crore women families, women in the families, household. So just by press of the button, the entire money went.
Okay, direct transfer.
Direct transfer. Similarly, Kisan Samman Yojana, many of these things were done. The one is that, it enhanced the government ability to reach you. Imagine, in non-COVID times, non-Aadhar days, how would this have happened? So there was a very interesting article in The Economist magazine in 2020. There were 2 articles, and then they said that, look, during the COVID time, these developed countries, they use this they send physical checks by a snail mail. Now in COVID, how will the postal department also work? Because it was a completely, the people were now moving out. Whereas India used such an innovation that it transferred the money by the DBT directly into the bank account. And people bought things with the nearest shop, right? Through the, the UPI. So they didn't have to even go to bank to either deposit a check or withdraw money, or to the ATM, right? So those problems could be completely, so then they said that, so they were kind of comparing what India has done, and they were saying, in fact, this was stated by The Economist, saying that India with 1.2 billion population can do this. It is the same that, some of the developed countries, they haven't been able to do that. They are relying on the physical checks through a snail mail.
It's like it has become a case study for many countries too.
Right,
Like
yes.
the scale of the project
Right,
that
yeah.
you guys have done, it's like incredible.
So then, in the, for example, in the government, we, that time, in order to boost domestic manufacturing, we brought in PLI, as I said, that infrastructure, the PLI, the many of these things. For example, Vande Bharat train that you were saying, again, it's a kind of a complete paradigm shift that, the train journey means what? It has to be, because, at one hand, when you travel in the aircraft, we have certain expectation. But the moment you go into the train, it completely changes, right? So, that kind of a thing has now changed, and now more and more trains. So, first time the Vande Bharat train was introduced was in 2019. Right? So, this way, if you see in each sector, of course, the Ayushman Bharat and, the many things have been done. So these are some of the major things which India has done. So basically, India has built so many public platforms, which are directly benefiting, because most of the programs will mean 40 crore, 50 crore, 70 crore, 80 crore people, right? 700, 800 million people, right? If not less, more than that. So that is the kind of a scale we have done. So as a country, what we have done is truly remarkable. So this now after that, 2022, I came to the current assignment, and this assignment is also very interesting.
Okay.
Because if you see any country's development, role of private capital is going to make very important, right? We are saying about the Viksit Bharat 2047, where we say that our GDP will be around 27 trillion trillion dollars, right? Today the US GDP is of this size. China is 17. So in 2047, we'll be larger than what China is today. Of course, by the time China would have moved even higher, US would have also moved higher. But we would be like, what the US is today. But this kind of a thing wouldn't come automatically. It will require a lot of infusion of private capital from domestic, from all over the world. So when the people put their private capital, right, then, unless and until your accounting and auditing system, corporate governance is very transparent, the people are not going to put the money. If they put the money and then tomorrow corporate scam takes place, the money is siphoned away by the promoters or the management, then the people will not put the money. If the people don't put the money or capital, then, your country wouldn't develop. So therefore, in the NFRA, we are supposed to be a regulator for the auditors of the listed companies, and also we are supposed to make an accounting and auditing standards to be followed in India, right? So and this is a new regulator. It was set up only in late 2018. But because of COVID and other things, it took some time to start. But then we have started as an authority, started working, on a scale from around 2021-22 onwards. And we have passed more than 100 orders. And in many cases of scams, we have held, the auditors accountable, because if they had raised the flag earlier, then many of the losses which the company had to do this, had to take a haircut or bankruptcy, or the shareholder lost the money, or the bank's depositors, right? They lost their money, could have been avoided. And whenever many such scams happen, it shakes the confidence of the investors and also the retail. Today we are saying that the retailers are, holding up the stock market, right? At least, just if you, during the last few weeks, what is happening is some kind of a correction. But otherwise, yes. So then so once the people, their confidence is shaken, then this will be a problem, right? So that is why this assignment is also very, very, the critical. So,
yes, sir, like I'm still wondering what a journey, like, from a Bihari boy to IIT, then doing all of this and full of circle, like the way you used your technology का ज्ञान in governance, like जो संगम करवाया आपने, and beat at every position from like in Aadhar to revenue secretary, like incredible. So I'm still wondering like what a journey. And you're still not stopping, like what is your age here?
No, I'm almost, my age is public.
But still,
Google, you said about the Google, you could look at my age.
No, but sir, it's like very incredible, and I hope you continue to work like that and
Thank you.
be healthy, and thank you so much for your time, and I really enjoyed it. And any message for our audience?
No, thank you. I think we have already said, discussed. And in fact, whatever I have said, actually what it shows, and I mean, at least I hold that view, is that, in any, the development phase, there will be challenges. But then I must say that, there will be interesting solutions also, right? And now that, we are now entering into the age of AI, right? And then the power of the AI is supercomputing and quantum computing. These are some of the things which are coming. Now, so at least what I see is that their role in the governance, right? And a country like India, we can, if we can, leverage those capabilities and resources, and for the, our development. Then when our Prime Minister is talking about 2047 Viksit Bharat, it is not something, some people say that, it is only a wish. My answer is no, right? It is eminently doable, right? Today, all the pieces are there. As I said, the digital public infrastructure that we have built, right? If you have to reach people, we can do this. So, but at the same time, there are many other areas also we need to look at. For example, improving the quality of education here, the human resources here, right? So some of these things, plus other challenges like, even the physical infrastructure, the power and this, the employment, many of these things. And I feel that no matter which challenge we take, I wouldn't say that the technology alone can solve the problem. The answer is no. But then the technology could be a big enabler. And that itself, it will be and big enabler, and which will make it possible for us to solve those problems and develop our country.
So definitely, and I personally love your learning aptitude, like the constant learning, and maybe next time jab hum lenge to please do some degree in LLB too. So thank you so much, sir, for your time, and thank you so much. Thank you.